All right, hello. Welcome to another very special Riot Act video podcast with me, Stephen Hill, and I am joined this week by Mr. Cormac Battle of Kerbdog. Hello, Cormac. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, Stephen. Yeah, it's good to see you again under such strange circumstances, but nevertheless, strange for everybody, isn't it? Us talking like this is weird.
Yeah, we had a little before we started recording. We had a little chat about. A kind of cautiously optimistic chat about the potential of the COVID pandemic actually not being here sooner rather than later. So I think everybody's got their fingers crossed with that. It must be a very odd time to be in a band.
Well, it must be very odd to be in a full-time band.
Yeah.
Because for instance, like there's a band in Dublin that I like, and they're doing very, very well for themselves, and they've released an album. Do you know the Fontaines DC? They're kind of a post-punk band, and yeah, they're doing very well. They're doing quite well in the UK, and they've just
Grammy nominated.
Grammy nominated exactly today, as we're talking about this, and I remember talking to their manager and saying, you guys are bringing out an album in the middle of this pandemic. You can't play any gigs whatsoever. You cannot promote what you do. And they said, well, what do we do? What do you do? Do you just sit on your record for 2-3 years? They had no idea how long it was the pandemic was going to last. And people forget about you. So in one respect, I'm very glad that I'm not in a full-time band, because that would be absolutely killing you to be bringing out new records and new material and then not being able to play it to audiences, because you've got that double-edged sword problem of, if you don't bring out stuff because you can't play live, people just move on. They forget, and or make stuff and bring it out and then not be able to play live. And I suppose these days as well, so much income for bands to survive, they have to play live, because there really isn't a huge amount of money in making albums anymore. Because it's all streamed, and there's so many people are not buying physical product anymore. Most people aren't. So bands really, in terms of trying to survive, it's all about playing live. And if you cannot play live, you cannot make a living, and that's really, really hard.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting you just said people forget, don't they? But do they? Because I'm going to go back to the first time we met was at Sonosphere 2014. And I was working for Team Rock Radio, the now long dead Team Rock Radio, and Kerbdog were playing Sonosphere Festival. And I specifically had requested you as an interview. And you walked up and I said, On the Turn, one of the great albums of the 90s. And our interview was basically me convincing you that I actually liked your record. 6 years on, do you finally believe me now that I do? I do actually like your record.
Yeah, do you know what? I do, and it's interesting. It's interesting how you say that, because I spent so many years after the On the Turn, which is the one where people know Kerbdog best for, when it came out. When we made that record, we really believed in it, and it came out. I think it was the right record at the wrong time. It came out in '97, and it was the whole Britpop thing was happening in the UK, and guitar bands like ours in particular, heavy bands like us, were really not getting. Nobody was really interested, certainly in the media at that time, and I internalized that as well. And we got dropped by our label because even though they spent a huge amount of money on making our album and so on and so forth, they decided to cut their losses and drop us. And that was their decision, and fair enough. Maybe I would have done the same thing. But so I spent many years thinking about associating On the Turn with a sense of failure, to be honest, and that when people would tell me, it's a great record, and it really meant a lot to me, and it was a big influence on us and so on, I'd be kind of like, yeah, you're only just saying that, but you say we met last in 2014. In the intervening years, something has changed. And it's taken a while, but I've come around to believe what people say about it, that specifically On the Turn is a great record. And I'm I'm starting to recognize that now. And it's a bit of an Irish thing as well. It's in our personalities not to be able to appreciate them. We're very self-critical, like English people and Scottish people. People in this part of the world, we're very self-critical, and we tend not to believe in ourselves or not to believe the hype. And that's the way I felt. But it's especially with the release of these vinyl records, because they were deleted such a long time ago. And where the guys in Hassel Records in London said, you should release these on vinyl. There's an interest in vinyl. I said, you're joking, man. No one's going to be interested in these. So I said, if you want to do it. That's up to you. And I'll do whatever I can. But lo and behold, they were right. There was a big demand for them. And that kind of has been reinforcing the fact that the records were worthwhile and did make a difference in some way. They could have made a huge difference, I suppose, if things had been different. Like I read a review, it's 25 years after the fact, or how many years? 23 years after it, calling the album On the Turn a masterpiece. And I mean, if somebody had called our album a masterpiece in a review back in 1997, it'd be like, Jesus Christ, that's unbelievable. But better late than never. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I mean, we'll go back to the recording of the time a little bit more as we go through this chat. But I have to say, I mean, I've been properly working, for Metal Hammer and in the music industry and doing various things since 2000, so 9 years. And I feel very lucky that I've spoken to a lot of people who I really admire and admired when I was growing up. From fucking Slash to Mike Patton, whatever. I've talked to a lot of people, and there's a load of things that I'm really, really proud of. But I'm genuinely not blowing smoke up your ass. I'm not trying to be a kiss ass or anything. One of the best things that I'm most happy about the last sort of 9 years and the stuff that I've done in the music industry is that I was under the impression that me and my friends, my kind of group of 20 friends, because I bought On the Turn because it was cheap, to be perfectly honest with you, Cormac. I saw it on HMV on the day it came out. It was $6.99. CDs weren't.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, CDs weren't $6.99 back then, so I bought it just to give it a go. Listened to it, played it with all my mates, and we all went, "This is brilliant." And then you never toured, we never saw you. We thought we had this thing that no one else knew about. And all those years later, when I started working in the music industry and whatever, and talking to people and tweeting about the band and talking about the band, the amount of people that would come back to me and go, I loved that band, I loved that album. And now I think there are a bunch of people who probably hadn't heard you before, but a bunch of people who had been doing this same thing, sitting on this album going, where is this band? Like, why does nobody know about this band? And it's really lovely to see all of those people kind of congregate back together and finally find each other. Do you know what I mean? It's really, really nice.
Yeah, it is. It is really nice. And do you know what? You're not 100% wrong about the idea that you were the only guys in that group, because it was just pockets of people who found out about the band, and it was kind of like through people copying tapes and stuff like that and passing them on to each other that people found out about us. And it is nearly a posthumous kind of thing as well. Posthumous band-wise, none of us died, but the band kind of died when we got dropped. We didn't really carry on, but the music itself started to find more and more people as time went on, without us actually knowing about it. We were more popular when we were gone than when we were actually active as a band, which became evident when I was one day I texted the boys just for the laugh. I think it was 2006 or something like that. Said, do you fancy playing a gig? Fuck it, probably 10 people will turn up, but sure, it'd be a good chance to have a few beers and have a laugh. And we ended up playing to like 1,500 people in Dublin, which we couldn't get arrested in Dublin before. About 50 people would turn up to see us, and then suddenly we had all these fans that we'd never had when we were actually active as a band. It was just insane. We just couldn't believe it. And that just for that to happen that's not the way it's meant to happen, you know. But it did, and which was a nice thing. There just seems to be, it just seems to just keep going and going and going. And anytime it sort of stops, people like Hassel would would approach us and say, "Listen, would you fancy putting out your albums on vinyl?" And the same happened with the live album. Someone said, "Would you fancy putting out a live album?" I said, "You're mad! Like nobody gives a shit. Like nobody wants to hear it." And then an audience comes out of the woodwork. It's mad, but it just happens. It's very flattering, you know.
Yeah.
We're not huge. We're not Metallica. We're not any of that kind of stuff. But we're certainly a lot bigger kind of now than we ever were back then. If you know what I mean.
You got any idea why that is? Have you ever been able to kind of, because you must have sat there and gone, you know, like you said.
I just think like you guys, like you, that story you tell about the album HMV, it's kind of, you know, we were dropped. We were finished very quickly after On the Turn came out. But I think that people were, by word of mouth, just passing it around, and it just passed around slowly and multiplied like a bit of a virus, pardon the expression. And people slowly found out about who we were and what we did that way. And it didn't hurt, I suppose, that bands like Biffy Clyro and so on, Frank Turner, and there's a few others that would have mentioned us. And I guess maybe they're talking about us in interviews and whatever, may have, like, they've got like, you know, Biffy Clyro obviously had a vast amount of fans that, you know, if I was a fan of a young guy, and as I was a fan of a band and they were talking about, so I would probably check them out as well. So it was just about being, I guess, all these different routes to exposure came after we'd sort of finished. But I think principally it was word of mouth and people passing. Oh, by the way, did you hear this thing? I never got to see them live, but you know, check this out. Here's a tape. I'll make you a tape. Blah 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 blah. I don't care. I don't give a shit how people hear us now. It's, you know, certainly not about money, or, you know, people want to. Yeah, well, there's all the streaming services now, so it doesn't really make any difference anyway. But you know, I think I'm quite long-winded about getting to that point, but I think it was a combination of people dropping our names here and there, and word of mouth, which you know, at the time you couldn't really buy. Well, maybe you could if you spent £1 million, but
the street teams.
Exactly.
So let's go right back to the very beginning, because obviously, you know, we are predominantly talking about the reissue of these two records. I listened to both of them today just because I wanted to. I mean, I don't really feel like I need to sort of bone up on them to listen to them, because I mean, like I said, particularly On the Turn, I've listened to, I don't know how many times, but I tried to listen to them again with a kind of critical ear today.
Yeah.
Opposed to just some sort of, you know, nice, fuzzy, nostalgic thing that I like listening to. And I was really struck by how, I mean, I don't know if it's because of the fact that 90s sound from bands like Hum coming in with a great album this year, and, you know, Failure have got back together, and there's a lot of bands who, you know, have been leaning quite hard on that kind of 90s grunge, sort of flangey, smashing pumpkinsy guitar as well. And I know obviously you guys are a bit more metal than that, but still that kind of 90s sound feels quite zeitgeisty again at the moment. And I thought to myself, what would I think if I was someone who was hearing this record for the first time? And I think so much of it really still, in both cases, both records, so much of it still really stands up today. And when people say it's a, you know, a masterpiece and a classic and stuff, I think the type of records that people usually say that about are records that have this kind of timeless quality to it. Do you have any thoughts? That's not really a question, is it? Do you have any thoughts?
No, it doesn't matter. No, that's all right. It doesn't need to be a question. It's just a conversation, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think I was actually having the same thoughts myself recently. Like, if I usually just talk about On the Turn, because I sometimes feel like our first album was kind of an extended demo tape, really, because, you know, when we had 10 songs ready as a young, naive band, we went in, recorded them, and put it out as an album. But I think maybe things would have been different if On the Turn had been our first album. But anyway, that's a side issue. The point being, you're asking about whether it would sound fresh to say a pair of 18-year-olds' ears or 17-year-olds' ears? I think it would, because I don't think it sounds terribly dated, because On the Turn is principally a lot of what we do. You can kind of break it down and play them on acoustics guitars. They're just songs, really. You know, they're they're just songs, and it's about melody, really, and melody is what sort of turned us on. And I know there was nuclear powered amps, and massive drums and all that kind of stuff, but the hidden behind all those was kind of relatively simple kind of songs that you can hum along to and sing. And I think that's in essence, that's kind of the timeless part of it. And I think if you played that to a kid now who's into that style of rock music and said that we were a bunch of 22-year-olds from fucking Cleveland, I don't think he would doubt that, So yeah, I thankfully they do kind of stand up. They haven't dazed it terribly, and they don't sound, like a lot of things you look back on what you wore or that kind of stuff, and you kind of go, fuck, that's a bit cringe. But the albums themselves, no, I feel that they haven't dated like we have as people, but they're still, not that they were the sound of the future. Like sometimes I think about Nirvana's Nevermind, and I think that, and I heard Noel Gallagher say this, that Nevermind was it was an album from the future when it came out. It just sounded like the future. It was just not of this world. I'm not comparing us to Nirvana or Nevermind, but I think there's an element of that to some of the records like that came out around that time, that if you played them to somebody, an alien, and said that this is what's happening now, that it would be totally believable.
Yeah, I think there's sort of two different types of records of that ilk. There's bands like Rage Against the Machine, for example, who kind of push the conversation forward or refused, where you listen to it and you go, I've never heard anything like this before. This is insane. This is a completely new thing. And that keeps it kind of, I listened to the first Rage album a couple of weeks ago and was just stunned still how unbelievably forward thinking.
Oh, me too.
Still sounds, yeah, and of course. And then there is, another band that myself and Renfrew, my co-host, were talking about only yesterday was My Vitriol, who are a band who weren't necessarily doing anything new, but were kind of taking things that weren't really popular around that time and just going, well, fuck it, we're doing it anyway. And like you said, On the Turn came out in 1997. It was Limp Bizkit and Oasis, really, wasn't it? Like they were
pretty much.
You had to, and On the Turn was very much not that. And I think by kind of digging your heels in and going, because a lot of bands they adapted to fit either one of those mold, whatever they were closest to, they did.
Yeah.
And everybody tried to have, whether your Slayer tried to fit into the sort of new metal thing, and there are a few bands who did the kind of Brit poppy, like Three Colours Red second album, there's a bit of the kind of more Brit poppy stuff on there. Whereas On the Turn doesn't do that. And I think those are the albums that where you go, well, this is an album completely touched by the kind of the zeitgeist and what's popular right now. And that gives it this kind of sense of longevity, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. We weren't trying to second guess what was going to be popular, or what when the album came out, what were we gonna hit the right. We weren't thinking like that at all. Maybe we were too naive as well, and not business savvy or savvy in any way. We were just making a record that sounded really good to us, and we didn't have one eye on the main chance. We weren't out trying to sell 1 million records. That wasn't even, none of that stuff was in the forefront of our minds. Would have been nice, but that wasn't what we were thinking about at the time. And I suppose we didn't have a manager doing that either. So we were kind of sort of left to our own devices, and we were that far away from London as well, where our record label was based. Yeah. They couldn't just keep flying in and out to LA to hear how it sounded, and trying to push us, try and mold what we were doing. the physical distance at that time made that impossible for them to really kind of get involved. So that's and that removal as well for us, because we were 4 or 5 months out there, completely removed us from the whole British music scene as well. So we were just doing what we were doing, and we kind of got lost in it. And unfortunately, I suppose, it didn't really sort of fit into any particular kind of groove or musical narrative that was going on at the time when it came out. And as a result, it sort of fell between a few stools, unfortunately.
Do you feel like you had any kind of peers, and were there any other bands that you sort of looked at and you went, well, we're kind of in this boat together? Because I was sort of trying to think back, and I mean, obviously, Therapy had a similar sort of. I mean, Therapy obviously hit big, and then post kind of Trouble Gun with them and new metal came in, and Brit, like they obviously they didn't disappear and vanish completely, but when you get to kind of albums like Suicide Pact You First and High Anxiety and stuff like that, their profile is significantly diminished.
Yeah.
Were there any other bands around at the time that you remember that you sort of you would bump into and you'd both be like, oh, bit of a slog, this, isn't it?
Not really bands that we knew. I always felt like we used to end up playing with bands that we weren't really. Although most people that we played with were all really super nice people, but I never felt that we were totally compatible with what they were doing.
Biohazard.
Maybe that's good. Biohazard being one of them. Like, you know, we toured with the Almighty and the Wild Hearts, and like, you know, I love Ricky Warwick to death. Like, he's a great guy. But again, we never seem to end up playing with bands that maybe there wasn't one, you know, or maybe there wasn't a band at the time. I suppose a band that came kind of sort of that emerged at the same time as us, but you know, they didn't sort of hit big until we were kind of starting to decline, was Foo Fighters. I think in terms of music sensibility, and I think a Foo Fighters fan would like what we do. I would be very surprised if they didn't, even though we weren't, you know, there was no influence from Foo Fighters on the music that we made. But I could see how someone would like the Foo Fighters and like what we do. Helmet were a big influence on us, very much, hugely, and you know, you can tell that a lot of what we did was, you know, inspired stroke, you know, heavily influenced by what they did. You know, they weren't big on melodies and stuff like that, but they're certainly their kind of sledgehammer, kind of mathematical approach to riffs was something that we adopted in a very big way. But otherwise, I don't know. There wasn't many bands sort of doing what we did, really. I don't think. Can you think of any? Not precisely.
Not really. No, not really. I mean, certainly not in this part of the world. I think
maybe
there are a few. You know, I mean,
bands like Filter, maybe.
And also, I mean, somebody like, I mean, when I think of the more melodic parts of On the Turn, I think a lot of these bands were already gone by the time. But I was going to say somebody like Quicksand. And
or Jimmy Eat World,
or Sensefield, and Texas the Reason and stuff like that had a bit of that kind of very melodic but very gritty sound. But that was something which was, you know, massively that was a real underground thing.
Certainly with bands like Quicksand and those kind of things. But so like in terms of peers, I don't seem to really remember many at the time. There was a lot of bands we admired, but they certainly didn't kind of there weren't bands that sounded like us. You know, you'd go and see Tool, you'd go and see Rage Against the Machine, you'd go and see all these other bands, but we they're not bands that we really sounded like. I don't think.
No, it's true. So I was also going to ask you about, because I'm not sure I've really spoken about the actual conversation that happened when you guys originally split up. How did that come about, and if you can remember? And I mean, just because you used to get Kerrang every week and look straight away for the gig section, and I remember every week you'd look like who's announced a tour, and every week I remember thinking, well, Kerbdog, surely you're going to tour this record that I've just got. Surely they're going to tour it. And never did I open the pages of Kerrang magazine, and never did I see the kind of the UK tour posts on the turn coming out. I think maybe I might have just missed the first one when the record first came out.
Yeah, we did do one UK tour, one big long one, a club tour when it came out, and that was it. That was the end. After that, then.
So
the album came out in April, and I think by the end of the summer, it was kind of all over really at that point.
So how did it break down like that?
Well, you know, there wasn't any animosity, but there's nothing to do with us as people. We were kind of, I suppose it was very pragmatic, and I think we all felt, you know, it's a strong word, but we all felt quite damaged by how things were. You know, I think the album was finished in '95, and then it got mixed twice, and then it was delayed all through '96. It didn't come out, and then it kind of limped out in April without any kind of push whatsoever. It was, you know, kind of just put on the shelves really, without any push whatsoever, and that was devastating to us, to be honest, for the work we put into that record and what we believed it could have achieved, for us and for it and of it as an album itself. So we were really, really disillusioned and hurt by the whole experience at that point. And so what happened then, we kind of, our bass player left and went back to college. You know, we understood that because, you know, we'd all come from college, and he went back and to finish off what he'd left off with. And then myself and Dara, the drummer, decided we'd continue on with another band for a while called Wilt, and we did that for a while. But the Kerbdog thing just kind of, that was the end of it. Then I do remember when Mercury let us go, there was a short period of time when we were going to try and shop the album to some American labels.
Yeah,
there's a bit of activity there, but I think trying to get the album out from Mercury was going to be possibly too expensive and too much of a hassle for anybody else to want to get involved. So, you know, and that's their right, I suppose. They'd spent £500,000 on making this record, and they could keep it if they want. So I don't think anyone was going to buy it off them for £500,000. And so that was sort of the end of it. And we, you know, I think there was some offers from other labels, maybe Roadrunner and a few of them, but for whatever reason, we just kind of went, maybe we should have kept going. I don't know, but we didn't. We just went, nah, fuck it.
Well, it was an interesting one. I actually got a tweet from someone earlier today saying that he still listens to Wilt nearly every week.
Well,
there you go. So,
there's not. I tell you, that's a small club as well. But, but like, some of that Wilt stuff is all right, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I got it obviously, and I like the record. I mean, I did think that's not quite the same standard, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, it's a good. And I remember seeing you guys at Reading and really hoping you were going to play some Kerbdog stuff, because it was the first time I'd seen you play anything ever. And I was like, oh, maybe they'll, because it's a couple, it's not. And you didn't. So I was a bit like,
Yeah. I remember that. Like, you know, a lot of the times at Wilt concerts, people would be shouting up for Kerbdog songs. And, you know, that's good and bad. You know what I mean? At the time, you're kind of going, oh, fucking hell. But yeah, that happens. I'm sure that happens to anybody who moves on from another band and start, you know, people move on and start and do other bands. But I think me, as myself, as Cormac Battle, you know, anyone in the music world who knows about anything that I would have ever done would always associate me with Kerbdog, and certainly not Wilt, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the Foo Fighters documentary, speaking of Foo Fighters, where that first tour they went on, and you've got, you know, a year after Kurt died, and you've got people shouting "Smells Like Teen Spirit" at Dave Grohl while the Foo Fighters, their first club show. I mean, as much as I sat there,
That's a different situation.
Well, that's
a fucked up situation altogether.
That's fucking horrible. And I mean, as much as I was like, I wish I do JJ's song, I wasn't going to shout it out. I think that's massively disrespectful. You know, you just got to kind of accept what people were doing now. And I knew, you know,
I think so. Unless they're one of those bands who do, you know that they're going to play some of the older stuff, and some bands do that. You know, that's not something we did. This is a new band, and that's where we wanted it to be. But and we never kind of mixed it up, you know. But yeah, that's it. But yeah, I can understand. You can understand how that would happen for Dave Grohl and Foo Fighters, especially when they started. I bet you no one ever says that now, ever. No one.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine 50,000 people. Not one of those people would say shout up for Smells Like Teen Spirit now. Although it's funny, last year I went to see Foo Fighters playing in Dublin. And I'm sure a few people in the audience spotted it. He got up to play one song on the drums himself. And he came in. It was a Foo Fighters song. And he came in, but he did the intro drumming to Smells Like Teen Spirit into the song, which is not in the normal version of it. And I heard him doing that, and it just was just like, fucking hell. It sent a shiver up my spine. Just to hear even a few seconds of Nirvana being played by a member of Nirvana. Although I did see Nirvana when they were an embryonic band supporting Sonic Youth in a club in Dublin.
Wow.
Before Nevermind came out, yeah.
Cool.
And myself and my mates, just like you were talking about, say on the turn, few of us had been aware of Bleach, and because we were into what Sub Pop were doing at the time, the record label, and so we were aware of Bleach, and we've been listening to Bleach and love Bleach and all that stuff. And so we went out. We were into Sonic Youth as well, so we went out to see both bands. And there was about 60, 70 people in to see Nirvana. But it was a special night, I'll tell you that. But it's one of those things where the place could have held about 500 people, and I think there's about 10,000 people in Ireland who said that they've been at that gig. They weren't.
Yeah, it's always
because I was there. Yeah. You weren't there. These kind of legendary things.
Yeah. I know it's true. I think I've heard pretty much everyone I've ever met that's been to saw Slipknot at the Astoria. Everyone I've ever spoke to in London who's got a vague interest in metal saw Slipknot at the Astoria. I was like, God, they must have been playing Wembley Stadium, not the Astoria.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah.
I actually did that show, by the way. But anyway, I did. I used to have the ticket to prove it as well. But anyway, it was. Speaking of that kind of era, I know people who are watching or listening now are going to be rolling their eyes, going, "Oh, here we go. He's going to go back into wasn't the 90s a magic time thing again that he does every week." And I am going to do that. But I think so many bands from so many different places and so many genres created so much amazing stuff off the back of that thing that Nirvana did. And I think, without putting words in your mouth, whether it was an obvious kind of influence, or whether it was influence begat influence, or that kind of trickle down effect, surely Kerbdog and pretty much everyone that was surrounding you at that point we were all kind of feeling the effects of that massive explosion that was Nirvana and grunge and alternative rock. And it just feels like I'm not sure that could or will ever happen again, something like that.
No, I totally agree with you. And I don't, obviously, like for someone my age, when that happened, it was an earthquake. It was a huge earthquake, because in one fell swoop it wiped Motley Crue, all these kind of these hair bands, all that shit away. Bon Jovi, all that stuff, it was just gone. They were made irrelevant overnight by Nirvana, and a band who were kind of reluctant and kind of didn't care. Well, certainly didn't seem to care, and they effortlessly came along and killed the whole music scene in one go without even trying. And I remember when I heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit." I was on the Dole in Dublin at the time, a messed up college, and I was on the Dole. I was listening to, as I said, I'd been a fan because of Bleach, and went down to the shop and got, got "Smells Like Teen Spirit" on an imports CD single, and came back and put it on, and just thought, this is the fucking end of the world. This is ground zero again. Everything is irrelevant now. After when I heard that, it was just like, oh my god. And I'd say a lot of people, like, I had no record deal. I had any thoughts about doing any of that at that time. But I thought I'd say a lot of people, a lot of bands around the world went, oh my god, that's it, we're finished, it's all over, when that record hit. And it was true in many respects. And I think you're right. And I know people will say, oh, you're a bunch of old geezers just reminiscing, saying back in our day, it was much better back in our day. But it was actually. And I think
Yeah.
it actually was. And I don't think there has been, maybe Oasis, but it's not on a global level, because Oasis wasn't really a global phenomenon. But the last thing to make a global cultural kind of explosion, as you say, I think was the Nirvana record, Nevermind. I don't think there's been anything since that has caused such a huge shift in youth culture, on a mainstream level, as that.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to talk about, I don't know, some kind of boy band or something, but One Direction, it's probably the same kind of impact as One Direction had on the world, or the Beatles nearly to a certain extent.
The Beatles would be, the only band who I would kind of put above Nirvana in terms of the influence they had on kind of everything, really.
Yeah, and wider culture as well.
Yeah, you could look at Black Sabbath, but I think you have to kind of focus Black Sabbath into guitar-based music, and it's the same with Zeppelin as well. And then
my mother thought Nirvana were brilliant. I mean,
yeah,
and she didn't care about music at all. She thought Kurt Cobain was brilliant. She thought he was a handsome, sexy guy, and the music was amazing. And she was my mother, for God's sake. That's what they did. That's what Nirvana did, without even trying. Fuck, it's amazing.
Yeah,
talking about it now.
I mean, it's a conversation that's been had many a time. So we should probably stop on the old, rocking chair, on the reminiscing about the old days kind of thing, and bring it back up to kind of where we are now in terms of Kerbdog and what you guys do and how you operate these days. Like you said, you don't treat it like a full-time band.
Sorry, my headphones here have died.
Have they? All right, we're going to keep this in. Where were we? What were we saying?
We were talking about that. We need to come back to the present and stop reminiscing about Nirvana and how much they changed the world.
Yeah, that's true. So in terms of today and Kerbdog as a band, I mean, as you said, Cormac, you don't treat Kerbdog as if they are a full-time band. What is the process like of when you guys? Is it just literally a case that someone gives you a call and you go, should we do a gig or should we put a record out? I mean, is it literally like just? It's
usually other people. We've always been quite lazy. Even when that was probably one of our. It wasn't a good thing. We should have worked an awful lot harder back when we were doing it properly. But yeah, we're still a bit like that. And so people call us up and say, do you want to do a little tour? Do you want to do this? We put out a little record, and it never comes from us. It comes from other people. So, which is nice actually, because then we don't have to. Well, we did. There is work involved for us, but to some degree. But it's amazing when you go out and play gigs, and you're not worried about somebody from BBC Radio 1 turning up. Is Steve Lamacq going to be here? Is such and such going to be here? There's loads of pressure. None of that matters anymore, because you just go out and you play for your fans. They enjoy it. There's no agenda. There's no kind of like trying to schmooze some dude you got to go and come and meet this guy. You got to meet this booker. There's none of the politics and all that sort of stuff. So it's absolutely liberating. It's fabulous to play live now because, as I said, there's, certainly back when we were doing it, there was huge amounts of politics involved that I wasn't aware of at the time. I became very keenly aware of it as soon as we started putting out records, and you're being pushed to certain places and go over and talk to that person over there. They're very important. All this kind of stuff. But now it's there is no pressure like that because, we don't have to rely on it to make a living because we all have civilian jobs now, which is nice. So it's always a pleasure to go out and play live gigs because it just doesn't matter a fuck anymore.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's a good little extra thing to be able to do. I think just a fun, I think you guys deserve that, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think from all the kind of stress that I understand you went through, I think it's, again, going back to it being a lovely story, I think it's nice that you guys can pick up doing this thing that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
They hadn't quite worked out, and now there's an audience that are kind of pretty hardcore and are going to be there for you, whatever.
Yeah.
Do it whenever you feel like doing it, totally on your terms. That's a
really you're right. You're 100% right, because I hate saying that, our fans, that sounds a bit, that's arrogant. No, but people who really like our music, they're good people, I know that sounds really patronizing, but I've met lots of them, and the people who come and see us are good. They're nice people. They're good people. I know what that means, but I've never said that before. But I really like our fans. I really like the people who come to see us play. They're just nice people to talk to. I love talking to people after our gigs as well. A lot of bands be running away from their fans or people who come to see them. I just love I love chatting to them afterwards. It's one of the things I really enjoy about playing live now, is actually having chats with people afterwards, or even beforehand, or whatever,
Yeah.
And I'll talk to them about anything,
Yeah, that's. I mean, actually, I'm going to bring this up because someone, again, I tweeted earlier that we were having a chat, and somebody went, "Ask Cormac if he minds me and my mates turning up dressed as Scooby Doo." Do you know those? Because I've seen these guys at your gigs.
I have, yeah. They're hard to miss. They're the guys who dress up in Scooby Doo costumes at our gigs.
Yeah. You know why?
So
Scooby-Doo?
I don't know. Some dog costumes. Dogs. It must have something to do with dogs, I guess. Unless it's.
He doesn't.
You can ask him. There could be a deeper meaning to it. I don't know.
He doesn't.
He doesn't know. It just became a thing, and it doesn't need a reason. You don't need a reason for everything. No, but I suspect there's a dog connection. If there's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
But they're always welcome, and they bring a lot of fun to the gigs as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen they have been some of the most exciting sort of fun gigs I've been to. The show at the Forum where you recorded the live album was one of those. I've seen a few kind of, I was going to say Reformation shows at the Forum. I don't really mean because it wasn't the big comeback show, but I've seen a few bands who are playing kind of like legacy bands, if you like. Kind of the 100 Reasons did Ideas Above Their Station in full. I saw that at the Forum, and you can see like a lot of people who looked like they hadn't been to a gig for quite a long time just came out. Yeah,
a lot of babysitters being employed that night.
yeah, exactly. And the Refuse comeback show, the first night of that, it was like, it's every punk kid from the late 90s who hasn't been to a gig for ages. But one of the most that gig at the Forum that you guys did was one of the most sort of joyously celebratory gigs that I've been to in a very, very long time. People felt genuinely chuffed that you guys got the chance to do a venue like that, I think.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like, obviously the Forum is huge, and you could have fit loads more people in there, but it was just and it was. I remember that night. It was particularly bleak. It was pissing rain outside, and I think it was in the middle of winter. I was having a drink with my brother across the road. I'd seen bands like Alice in Chains playing in there, and various other bands too, and it was kind of, it was an iconic kind of place to play, and it was a good celebration because Jamie Lenman from Reuben was there, and Frank Turner turned up as well, and you know, it was just a bit of a celebration, a bit of a party, and it was just a good vibe, and that's all we're in it now is for good vibes, you know. That's it. If it ain't fun, we ain't doing it, you know.
So people will definitely want me to ask, and I feel like I know what the answer might be, but would there ever be a proper official third Kerbdog album? How close have you ever got to that? And is that a potential reality at any point, would you imagine?
I get asked this a lot, and we've had offers of people willing to pay for us to go and make a record and all that kind of stuff, which we haven't accepted as of yet. But because our lives as well, I'm just being brutally honest with you, you know, we've all got kids, and it's very hard to find, we've all got young kids, and it's very hard to find the time to fucking scratch your arse, never mind go off and record an album, write songs and tour it and stuff like that. But I really at this point I really wouldn't rule it out, because there just seems to be an awful lot of will for us to go in and do something like that, you know. So I don't know. I would, if this is a year ago, or 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have said categorically no, it's not a chance. We can't. You know, it is what it is, and it's done. But I don't know. Maybe we would. Although, having said that, most of the time when bands that I have liked have done similar things, I've been very disappointed with what they've done.
Yeah.
And it rarely turns out very well. I'm sure you'd agree with that, would you?
Absolutely. I mean, we were on this podcast just a week ago. We brought up Alice in Chains' Black Gives Way to Blue as pretty much the only example that we can really think of a comeback album, or you know, it's kind of unique in the fact that it slaps you in the face, and people use it as the exception to the rule because it is pretty much the only exception to the rule. I would say Soul Invictus by Faith No More was a really good comeback, and The Heart Is a Monster by Failure are the only three that I can really think of that I've really gone, they're great. I mean, I love Soundgarden, but I mean, some King Animal, their comeback album was, you know, and it's really difficult, I think, you've got to find a way to recapture that thing you were as a band, but not try and act like you're you were at that time. I think that's a very, very difficult seesaw to balance.
It is, and the more you try, the more it'll be off balance as well. It's you just have to you just have to take a punt. If it works, it works. It most likely won't, as you can see from what we're talking about. Most bands who come back with an album, you know, you can nearly groan and go, "Oh God, I'm afraid to put this on." And when you put it on, you go, "I was right. It's fucking terrible," and that happens so much. And I suppose with Alice in Chains, and I know they lost Lane Staley, but and Faith No More. Yes, those records, you know, they're very good. They stand up totally to listen to, but it certainly didn't connect with a fan base as though the records did that they originally would have brought out when they were doing their thing in a big way.
Yeah.
So I don't think you know, it's hard to find a band that actually would have come back with an album and then, you know, were sort of huge again, you know. Not that we were huge, but I'm finding it hard to find an example of one of those bands, you know, that happens with. It's hard, isn't it?
Put me in the spot now. I'm trying to think. There's definitely not one that springs to mind. I think
some bands do consistently bring out, you know, they bring out albums every 3 years for 30 years.
Yeah.
And some of those, you know, they've good ones, they've bad ones, they've good medium ones, and all that kind of stuff. But rarely someone goes away for a long time, brings out an album, and suddenly it's like, wow, that's amazing, you know. But maybe that's us, you know.
Well,
Who knows?
Yeah, wow. I mean, it might be. I was going to bring up Electricity, which was the one song that we have had from you guys in the interim period, if you like.
Yeah.
Which is a great song. Like,
it's not a bad little tune, that.
Yeah, I think it's a great song. I mean, I put it on. It's been a little while since I listened to it, so I put it back on today just before we started chatting, and I was like, if you can do this, you could get 12 of them.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not sort of going like, come on, trying to like nudge you along to do it, but I'm just saying.
I've had a guy from a record label send me that song, the link to that song, and said, listen, if you can do this, you can make a new record. And so this is someone trying to coax us into making a record. You know, you make a good point, because this has been made by people willing to put money where their mouth is regarding that. So look, you know, we'll see. You know, things do change. You know, people do change their minds, and you know, we might change our mind on this.
Yeah, fair enough. But in the meantime, there is plenty of Kerbdog vinyls to be snapped up. Well, I don't know. I mean, this is
there's not actually.
I was going to say there are plenty of them to be snapped up. This is a limited run, isn't it? And they're pretty much all gone.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you see, I'm bad with all this kind of stuff. But I think there's a few versions of things available. Some of the runs are sold out and they're gone. But if you go to kerbdog.com, or the Hassel website, the record website, you'll find out there. But yeah, some of them are sold out, all right. But I can't tell you off the top of the head which ones are. Again, we probably underestimated our own level, own level of popularity and demand at this stage, because it's very hard to gauge. Yeah. So there are limited runs. So if you've got one, I don't think they're going to be reprinted again. I think that's it. You know, if they're limited, and that's it. They're done.
Well, I think that's a shame that I mean, I would like to see that kind of readily available to all the people who would like to get their hands on them.
Well, I'm saying that, and I could be talking nonsense. I don't know, but maybe these things get reprinted. I don't know. Yeah, maybe they do. Maybe they do. Maybe they will. Maybe they will. I don't know. But I think there are versions available, but there's certain clear vinyl ones and there's green vinyl. You know, people like to collect these things, and I think, you know, there's limited runs of those. So they could be gone, but you'll have to check yourself. I don't know. I'm shit at the PR stuff.
No, you're very good, Cormac. You're a very good conversationalist. It's been lovely to have you on the show. I'm going to let you crack on, because I'm sure you've got things to be doing with your life.
Not a lot. Not enough.
You know,
can't go anywhere. Can't do. Currently, I'm not allowed to move 5 kilometers outside my house. So.
Oh right, okay, all right.
That's the way things are here at the moment.
Yeah, well, I know it's enough said about the lockdown.
Let's not talk about the thing.
Talk about, we've already done that, haven't we? I was also going to say, so when this does end, just to say, obviously lockdown and things will go back to normal. Plans on coming back and doing a few shows, you reckon?
Yeah, we've when we were putting the plan together for this, we said we do some. There was no vaccine talk. There was nothing then. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. So 2021, we thought we couldn't take a risk on trying to book gigs because we just didn't want to have to move them. So I think we're going to do some gigs in spring of 2022. So right. which is a long way off, but nevertheless, at least that'll happen, you know, because you don't want to be getting into a point where you're cancelling, rescheduling, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. We don't have time for that, and people don't have time for that in their lives either. So, and we might bring out. There might be some other stuff to come out then as well. Just we'll see. We're not sure about that yet.
Okay, fair enough. Well, that's intriguing and exciting.
So we'll give you we'll put you behind a nice VIP. You and Kanye West and a few of your friends can sit behind the rope drinking Cristal champagne at our gig. How about that?
Yeah.
I'll promise that for you.
I'd like to sit next to Kanye West. I've got quite a few things that I'd like to ask him, actually. So
yeah, me too, actually.
yeah. Anyway, Cormac, it's been lovely chatting to you. Thanks so much for coming on. And
pleasure, sir.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure. And yeah, hopefully you won't leave it another 5 years this time.
No, let's not.
We'll see you soon. Nice to speak
to you.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.